I thought this from where I am.
Your network is bad, Chairperson. Maybe you must move from where you are sitting now. And switch off your TV, please.
My mic is still showing it.
We hear you,
Yes,
Chairperson.
I really hear you. If we do, let's start the mail. Really can't hear you. A new gadget, which is an IME sound. Maybe because you are saying you can hear. Let's welcome everyone. With a moment of silence or mid of prayer. In session, appreciate the out of the sitting of the meeting. We had an arrangement to, and later on we are now on very. It is special because there was a
Chairperson, can you switch off the radio? Chairperson, please switch off the camera. We hardly can hear you. And the TV behind you.
What are you saying I should do? I can't. Another
Please proceed, Dabezit.
All right, thanks, Chair. I think, Chair, because this is my first meeting as the chairperson of the board, and I haven't met with the members of the board yet. The handover has not been done yet, so I don't have much to say or to present in this meeting today. So if you can please allow our CEO, Advocate Mngwengwe, to do the presentation on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Ndabezita, for your introductory remarks, and you are mostly welcomed as the new appointees of His Majesty to Ingonyama Trust, and we wish you well in your future endeavors with the Ingonyama Trust Board. Honorable members, we'll now invite the CEO, Advocate Mngwengwe, to present to the Portfolio Committee of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Mngwengwe, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I request the presentation to be displayed. Thank you, Chair. I greet the members of the Portfolio Committee, the Executive Authority, members of the board present, the DG, and everyone else that's accompanying him. Chair, as members of the committee appreciate, this is an annual performance plan prepared by the board that was in place in 2022. Can we please move to the fourth slide? Chair, in terms of the mandate of the trust, of the board, actually, the board chair exists to administer the affairs of the trust as well as the trust land. And the trust itself is expected, in terms of its wider socio-economic development mandate, it is expected to benefit its beneficiaries, to advance the material welfare and social well-being of its beneficiaries. Of course, the beneficiary communities are listed in the trust, in the Ingonyama Trust Act itself. So what this means, therefore, is that when you look at the annual performance plan of the board, ideally, because the board exists to administer the affairs of the trust, you therefore have to look at what is the trust supposed to do, and ideally, what the APP is supposed to reflect is that which is the mandate of the trust, because the board only exists to administer the affairs of the trust. Of course, Chair, if you look at our APP over the years, you will find that there are arguments in the APP itself regarding why the APP of the board looks the way that it does. You particularly have to look at the accounting authority statement in the annual performance plan document itself.
Recording in progress.
That will tell you that the attitude that has been taken by the board over years is that the board only focuses on the funding that is allocated to it in terms of the fiscals, and therefore it confines the APP to that which can be achieved through that funding. And in this particular financial year, that is the roughly 23,800,000. So that is how, therefore, the APP of the board has looked the way that it does, because it simply focuses on the 24 million allocation as opposed to the wider socio-economic development mandate of the trust. Can we then move to the ninth slide? This is, Chairperson, where the actual indicators appear. We explained this in the last financial year, that part of the challenges of the board in the past years has been that there's been governance challenges that have been raised by the AG over a period of time. And when we started in 2021, one of the things that we wanted to do was to demonstrate our commitment to addressing those governance challenges, as a consequence of which we then brought in an indicator for external audit management action plans being implemented. This is the type of indicator that ordinarily would sit in an operational plan of an organization. But we elevated it to this level, to the strategic level, because we wanted to clearly indicate our intention to address those challenges. So therefore, it was a new indicator in the last financial year and in the current financial year. We also brought in internal audit management action plans for the same reason. Those therefore are the indicators that you see. With respect to the unqualified external audit opinion, Chair, there's a mistake in the presentation in that we have indicated in 2020, 2021, 2021, 2022 as if it was a new indicator. Those indicators were there. In fact, we achieved unqualified audit in 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022, and we intend to still do so as we proceed. Can I have the next slide? In terms of this slide, Chair, what you'll notice is that the indicators that existed in some of the indicators that existed in the last financial years are no longer part of this APP. There were reasons expressed by the board for doing so. So what we do have now are the number of tenure rights confirmed by the board after allocation by TCs, which are the numbers that you see. You will see that the numbers have gone down from previous financial years. That is as a consequence of litigation that occurred that now prevented the processing of residential leases, which had accounted for the greater number of leases that were received by this organization in the past. So as a result, these numbers were reduced, as a consequence of which in the current financial year, we're looking at 800, then gradually increasing going forward. Then there's an indicator on the number of human settlements approved by the board. As you can see, the audited performance indicates that this indicator has existed at least in the past 2 financial years, and it has never been achieved. It was still brought back. The reasons for its non-achievement were really much more internal to the organization, and we believe that it can be achieved and going forward, so which is why it still remains in the so, Chair, these are the only things that are really targeted for the current financial year, and they are consistent with what I raised earlier in relation to what appears in the Accounting Authority statement. What then follows, Chair, is a budget, which I think is slides 12 and 13, which I will be assisted by Mr. Vilakazi to take the committee through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Baumgwengwe. Let us welcome the CFO, Vilakazi.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings, Ndabezit. With your honorable members of the committee, the Madam Minister, the chairperson of the board, Ingonyama board members, DG, and colleagues. Chair, we present on slide 12 the medium-term expenditure for the 23-24 financial years approved in the estimates of national expenditure for the Ingonyama Trust Board. We'll also briefly bring to your attention the anticipated income and expenditures of the Ingonyama Trust. This, Chair, is important going forward because the financial performance of the trust, as the CEO explained earlier, amongst others, is an indicator of whether the board is effective in discharging its mandate. Chair, the ITB received 14.6% less in the financial year 23-24, which is a 5.5 million reduction from the 22-23 financial year. The total amount of transfers in 23-24 amount to 23,800,000. The transfers increased by 1 million from 23,800 to 24,800 in 24-25, with another million increase in 25-26. The grant received covers, in terms of expenditure, compensation of employees and goods and services at percentages of 60% and 40% respectively, Chair. On the next slide. Thank you. On this slide is the abridged budget of the Ingonyama Trust as reflected. The revenue for 23-24 financial year is expected to be around 55 million. Which is comprised mainly of rental income and other forms of passive income like interest from investments. The disbursements, Chair, currently as it stands are limited to 75%, which will be disbursements to beneficiaries, etc. So they're limited to 75% of monies received from the various land utilization agreements to beneficiaries. And we don't generally budget for these as they are based on a need and demand from beneficiaries. The expenditure for 24-25 for the Ingonyama Trust amounts to 27.3 million. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chairperson, that concludes our presentation to the committee, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Baumgwengwe, as well as Ubao Vilagazi, the CEO and the CFO of Ingonyama Trust. I would also take this opportunity to thank the Royal Highnesses, both Unkosi Mzimela and Unkosi Ntembe, as the newly appointed members of the board. Honorable members, we welcome the chairperson's intro and that of the Honorable Minister. We will now open the sessions for questions of clarity or comments. Honorable Kape.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to you. Good morning to the executive, the officials led by DG, the ITB. Chair, let me also appreciate and welcome the new chairperson of the board and his entourage. Oh, Chair, I think some of the members of the ITB has been present, and the successor in title, the new chairperson, would have familiarized himself with the operations or the documentation that we are here with today. Chair, despite everything, I still have an issue with realistic planning of the indicators for this annual performance plan. One, the advocate Mgwangwa is indicating that the APP focuses only on the 24 million from the department allocated. And that is what we are here for. But there's also a trust, Ingonyama Trust. I would want the advocate to indicate what is their relationship as the board with the trust. What is the role that the trust is playing? Because I'm sitting here and asking myself, Chair, should the department withdraw this or do not fund the board? It happened last time that because of issues and non-compliance, monies were withheld. We don't have a board. What's the role of the trust? Do they have a relationship with the trust? I would also want to hear from Khosi Mzimela, Chair. Does he have any plans, not deep, whatever he would be thinking of, to deal with the governance challenges that Advocate Mngwengwe says over the years, AG has had concerns on governance of this trust? I take that as and when you get appointed to a new position, you would have your own plans and basically how you would want to take the institution forward. Chair, the indicators that has been abandoned, for lack of better word, I have a challenge on those because as Advocate is indicating, or the board had reasons. For me, those indicators that even if they were not achieved, spoke directly to the mandate of this Ingonyama. I would want to hear from the board why they had discontinued the indicator of quarterly updating the immovable asset register, Chair, because for me, it was important as it ensured maintenance and updating of land holding register regularly so that the board is able to comply with requirements of the Auditor General regarding proper recording of its movable asset. There's also the capacity of traditional councils. It has been stopped. For me, this target also, Chair, had a tremendous impact that we were expecting from the board to traditional councils for their effectiveness and efficiency. Why this has been abandoned, why the board has discontinued this. I wouldn't even want to talk about those previous ones that we knew of giving bursaries to youth and everything. Hence, I'm saying most of this that has been discontinued speaks directly to the mandate. What is this that the communities under the Ingonyama Trust Board has to accrue from this board? So those will be my issues, Chair, to say the realistic part of this APP for me, it's very light, and I don't see if the board has to stick to these ones, taking communities under their authority anyway. That will be my take for now, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Metape. The Honorable Tate Masipa.
Chair, thank you very much. And to the board of ITB, thank you for your brief presentation. Chair, I have got a couple of concerns that I need some clarity on. The first one really primarily, Chair, is about the targets of the 800 tenure rights that have been proposed. The question really is what informed this particular targets? And obviously, we have also seen that in the past, the ITB has failed to meet this particular challenge, targets as to how are they going really to achieve these targets, as the presentation is quite thin around how they are going to meet those targets. Secondly, Chair, there were reports on the media with regards to the 41 million that was misappropriated. And the allegation obviously linked this misappropriation to a company that was set up like 5 months ago. And with the said allegation, it also linked this misappropriation to the previous board chairperson. Chair, I would love the new chair of the board maybe to just brief us with regards to those media allegations regarding this matter. Further, Chair, I think just on what Honorable Chap has said, you know, AG has always every year raised the issue of the governance around the ITB. The question is, are there plans to really address this governance issues? If they can really share those plans. I know that the ITB had an engagement with the minister, and maybe if they can really just elaborate as to how they're going to address those governance issues. That also goes with the human resources, the structure of the board in terms of having filled all the vacancies that I think were vacant at the time. The one more question, Chair, is with regards to legitimacy of the current chair. We have heard that the previous chair is considering court challenge to challenge obviously the chair, the current board chair, just to hear what is the situation there. The last one, Chair, is the status. We just want to know the status with regards to the ruling that the ITB needs to refund the rates and taxes, or I think it's not rates and taxes, but the what do you call that? The rentals that were charged for people that were that are on ITB or on the Ingonyama Trust land. There was a court ruling that the ITB must refund the people that are on ITB land. So I just want to know what is the progress in that regard. Is the ITB having that plan to start refunding, or what is going to happen with regards to that ruling? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ntate Masipa. The Honorable Baukapa. Tim Baukapa. The Honorable Ntate Matiase.
Good morning, good morning, Honorable Chair, and greetings to your colleagues, and greeting to the Royal Highness, the new chairperson of the board, and the team that he leads. Greetings to the minister as well and deputy ministers present. Well, Honorable Chair, let me also join my colleagues in the Portfolio Committee to welcome the appointment of the new board chairpersons and the new members. It comes as a good initiative. It takes the process forward. It renews the engagement between Parliament through the committee and the Ingonyama Trust Board. This is a new beginning. It's a new dawn, as people used to like to refer to changes. We wish the new chairperson all of the best in the work that you'll be doing. And we call on him, as he appears, to be a kind person, humble, and we hope that it is in his kindness and his humility that there will be cordial relation between himself, the board on one hand, and ourselves, the Portfolio Committee on the other. Honorable Chair, without saying much about that, I perhaps have to say the new chairperson in the board comes at a time when there are lots of challenges facing the Ingonyama Trust, which they have to familiarize themselves with those challenges. But because we are now having an opportunity to put questions before them, which I see would be a bit unfair because they are yet to familiarize themselves with a whole lot of these challenges. I can only draw the attention of the new chairpersons and the board on all those issues that my colleagues have already raised. One of them, of course, is clarifying the legality on his appointment by His Majesty the King against what was reported over the weekend in the media. It will appear that we are sitting with two chairpersons, unless if the statement which was released over the weekend by Umtwana Chief Buthelezi is reversed, would assume that we're sitting with two chairpersons, unless that is corrected. I missed the minister's opening remarks about a whole lot of issues. Perhaps in her opening remarks, she addressed that issue as well. Secondly, Honorable Chair, is in relation to the Ingonyama Holdings as a P2I Ltd company. What is business, what is its mandate, what is its role, in which we would need to know that, because it can't just exist without its legal standing clarified, and what type of transactions it enters in, and who are the members of its board, and a whole range of issues against all the allegations that have been made. Honorable Masipa has highlighted that. Thirdly, Honorable Chair, it would be about, and this is a matter that the Portfolio Committee for many years has been raising, that the Ingonyama Trust Board seems not to have a proper policy, egalitarian policy on handling tenure in its jurisdiction, where tenure is only favored towards male or men or husbands or sons in the families, and women continue to be marginalized and excluded. Would call upon the new board to look into the new policy, which must be calibrated to be in line with the values and the principles of our constitution, way in which all people are not deprived of the right to land and holding of such tenure rights and titles. Thirdly, it will also be on attending to all the financial management non-compliant issues which the Auditor General and ourselves have been raising, and ensure that that chapter of non-compliance, of irregular and maladministration on the resources of the Ingonyama Trust, that chapter is closed for good. For now, Honorable Chair, let me pause and say thank you for the opportunity to raise these questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ndate Matiase. Perhaps on part of the committee, honorable members, I must talk to what has come to the committee, and what we have received is a letter appointing His Royal Highness, the new chairperson of the board, being Nkosi Mzimela, by His Majesty King Misizulu Gazweltini, which was sent to the minister and subsequently sent to the portfolio committee. Any other issues that are out in the media or so forth has not been brought before the portfolio committee. But I will leave what Honorable Matthias has raised. Maybe if the minister is in the know-how of things that are out there, circulating, she can talk to, but I just wanted to clarify what is before the committee, as we must be procedural in the work that we do. Honorable Memasho.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. Can I please switch off my video? Granted. Thank you. Chairperson, good morning. And also good morning to the Minister and Deputy Ministers present, including my colleagues, officials of the department led by Ntate Ramasodi. And I also welcome the newly appointed board chairperson and all those that are appointed in that regard. Let me also welcome the presentation as presented. My little question, which I will align myself to what Honorable Tlhape has already mentioned, including Ntate Masipa, will be that as a part of a concern, that the matters of audit, as indicated by the Auditor General, is of a concern to me, which I need clarity on. How will the members of the board address those issues that are being identified by the Auditor General? But also, in short, Chairperson, I just wanted to get their turnaround strategy, which can help me to understand what are they going to do with those challenges that has been identified by the Auditor General. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mamumba Bama. Pankomo.
Chair, good morning.
Good morning, Tate Matias and Tate Masipa.
Chair, I'm sorry, Member Bama just notified me that she's not well. She's not able to join the meeting. She planned initially to attend. If you can give Honorable Krupp a chance, maybe. Thanks, Chair.
No, all honorable members of the platform will be recognized. We'll certainly acknowledge Honorable Kruger. Please proceed. Honorable Kruger. The Honorable Baukapa. Tim Baukapa.
Thanks, Chair. I think there was a glitch, technical glitch, which was disappointing me here. Otherwise, thank you, Chair. And for now, I wanted only to join you in the welcoming of the new chairperson of the Board of Trust, whether with the CEO and COO and then CFO. Otherwise, for now, I don't have any question of clarity, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kapa. The Honorable Tate Muntwedi. Dumela Tate Muntwedi. Agbare Breed.
Môre voorsitter.
Hoe gaan dit vandag?
Goed en self.
Dis baie goed.
Ek is bly. Chairperson, thank you. I think my colleagues have done a good job of covering most of the questions. I maybe just have one to add, and that is in terms of the APP, and as we've known, that the ITB have not necessarily always achieved said targets. And I would like to find out from the new board chairperson, how are we envisioning going forward addressing these issues? A lot has been said about the AGSA's findings as well, but how are we set? Are there plans to actually improve our APPs, improve the targets set and to achieve them? I think, Chairperson, we need to, going forward, we need to, the board needs to be open with us and needs to share, you know, what plans there are for the future so that we can also keep them to account. But I think most of my colleagues have covered the other questions. I will not repeat. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Akbare Bread. The Honorable Ndabezitha Inkosi enkulu bawucebekhulu. Ndabezitha Inkosi enkulu. Honorable bawucebekhulu. Honorable members, any other honorable members on the platform that have not recognized who may wish to pose a question?
Chair.
Honorable Kruger, I called you earlier, you may proceed.
Yes, sorry, my apologies, Chair. I'm in and out of the, I don't know if the signal is too weak, but good morning, everybody. And also please note my appreciation for the presentation. Chair, yeah, my colleagues also covered me you know, it's a very short presentation with a lot of information. Although I would like just to make a comment that for any organization to survive, financial management and the report thereof is crucial. So I will just want to, as a comment, make that comment and say, please, that is what we need. And maybe just ask the question, how are they going to guarantee sound financial management and reporting? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Akbare Kruger. Honorable members, any other honorable member on the platform who have not recognized who may wish to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Honorable Chwete, good morning.
A very good morning, Tim. Greetings to you, Chairperson, to my fellow portfolio committee members. I greet you this morning, the minister and the executive present, DG and the officials, and a warm welcome to the newly appointed board members. Firstly, Chair, I would like to remind each other, as much as we have a not so gloomy experience when it comes to certain issues about Ingonyama Trust Board. But let's assist and remind each other that the chairperson as per the mandate of the Ingonyama Trust, which is Isilo, the chairperson of the board is appointed by Isilo as his proxy. Now, as tempting as it is to seek clarity on that issue when it comes to the media coverage and stuff, but it is very clear on what the Ingonyama Trust mandate is when it comes to appointing and having a proxy in the board. So let us not be tempted to venture into that space is much more clear. That's one. Secondly, Chair, I'm a bit, I have a lot of clarity seeking questions, but now the board is new. The CEO is not new. So some of the issues are directly to the CEO, which is, I'm highly disturbed, Chair, by the continuous set targets of Ingonyama Trust Board, especially on the issues that talks to their core mandate. One, the training of its traditional leaders. Continuously so, that target is not met. The issue of policies, the ICT policy, the communication policy, the tenure rights policy, there's none. It's been continuous. My question, Chair, to the board, to the newly appointed board, or my question, what will be your strategy to address that your entity that you are currently leading keeps on not achieving not even half of their set targets? What informs their targets? Repeatedly so, Chair, for years, the Ingonyama Trust Board will set a target that they would issue so many hectares of land for as land tenure, for land tenure, but none of those will be met. How then do we suppose to do our oversight that they are actually doing what they said they will be doing? Lastly, Chair, the issue of what is this thing? Instability in leadership. As the board, how do you intend to stabilize the entity? If you look at the executive level or senior management level of Ingonyama Trust, they are active. There was a time where even half of the board was inactive. Half of the executives, a change of CFO and CEOs, in meetings will be introduced different CFOs and. How do you intend to stabilize and fill the vacant positions of Ingonyama Trust Board moving forward? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Treasurer. Honorable members, any other questions to the ITB? If not, honorable members, let me also take this opportunity to pose 2, if not 3 questions from the presentation that has been put before the committee. In the introductory remarks of the CEO, honorable members, it points out to one of the issues that this committee has been raising over the years, that being accountability of the trust and the trust board. An APP that is reflecting the indicators for Ingonyama Trust Board does not help this committee oversee the trust itself. Can we gain clarity in that regard? Honorable members, the CEO also correctly states that the ITB is the accounting authority for Ingonyama Trust. It is therefore important that the ITB shows us, as this portfolio committee on agriculture, land reform and rural development, the performance indicators which we will be able to monitor and assess whether the Ingonyama Trust exists for the purpose of which it was established for. Thirdly, honorable members, over the last few years, we do know that there has been some labor disputes resulting in various disciplinary processes initiated by the ITB. May I request the honorable members that the ITB to update the portfolio committee with regard to the capacity of the ITB to implement all the plans outlined in the APP. Further, we request progress reports with regard to all the disciplinary processes and outcome to date. Another issue, honorable members, is to reflect on is the vacancy rate and plans to ensure that all the vacancies are filled. Last but not least, honorable members, can the CEO or the board of Ingonyama Trust provide to this committee with information about the Ingonyama holdings? What is the purpose of Ingonyama holdings? And how has it enabled the Ingonyama Trust to further its mandate? That will all be the questions on my side. I will now therefore hand over to the Honorable Minister, the officials of the department, and the chairperson of the Ingonyama Trust Board, and the officials of the ITB. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. Just to clarify the issue as you have already done so, Chair, we have noted the media statement that was made by Inkosi Buthelezi with regards to the consultation he's held with the SILO. However, there hasn't been any formal communication to us, as you have indicated, Chairperson, that indicates anything different than the letter he had written to us. So from where we stand, the chairperson of the Ingonyama Trust Board as nominee of the King is Mr. Nkosi Umzimela, who is here with us today. So I think that's the clarity. On the other matters, Chair, I'm sure the CEO will clarify on those, but as we all know that the chair is new, he will also reflect. And I'm not sure, Chairperson, whether it wouldn't be ideal that we allow the chair to meet with his board. They review all the APPs as they have been presented to us and make amendments where necessary, and also be able to come back to reflect on the questions that has been raised by the members on how they will deal with those going forward. But I would let the chair to indicate what approach they may want to take. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister. Chairperson of the Board, His Royal Highness Nkosi Mzimela.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings again to the Portfolio Committee and everyone present. I think, Chair, some of the questions that were asked by the Portfolio Committee members have been already answered by the Minister, especially the clarity on two chairs of the board. But Chair, I think I need to confirm that yes, we have seen the allegations on media about the misappropriation of funds. Well, we will look into it. Then if there's the need for investigation, we will do the investigation. For now, Chair, we're not in a good space to answer most of your questions and your concerns as the Portfolio Committee members until we meet as the board. We receive the sorry, the handover from the outgoing board and the chairperson, And again, until we meet the staff members, so that we get the briefing from them. So before that happens, I think it would be difficult for us to answer all your questions and concerns, honorable members. But in few months to come, I think we'll be able to answer all your questions and concerns. Chair, if you can please allow us to get time to meet as the new board, to meet the outgoing chair for the handover and to get the briefing from our staff. I think then we'll be able to answer all your questions and concerns. And I think it will be difficult for us to amend our APPs before we meet as the board. If you could please allow us to amend them after we have met as the new board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ndabezitha. Advocate Mgwengwe, would you want to respond to the administrative questions raised?
Yes, Chair, I will attempt to the extent that I can, and Ms. Vilakazi will also assist where he can. Chair, with respect, I'll start with the last set of contribution from the chair himself of the portfolio committee. Chair, I'm not sure whether I'll be correctly characterizing your comments if I say the chair was asking for information that should be provided to the committee, not necessarily today. That was my understanding of the statements by the chair that he raised in his contribution. With respect to the rest of the others, I'll start with Honorable Tlhape. Chair, we appeared before the committee on the 29th of November, if I'm not mistaken, and also in October 2022. The chairperson of the portfolio committee correctly characterized the relationship that exists between the trust and the board in that meeting. And that relationship, Chair, is a very clear one, but which somehow gets misunderstood or misexplained. I don't know why. Chair, we have a trust established to advance basically socioeconomic conditions of beneficiaries of those that are listed in the Ingonyama Trust Act. Then you had a situation where the trust only had a single trustee, and the trustee had quite extensive powers as provided for by the Act. Of course, an amendment happens in 1997, and the powers of the trustee were completely repealed, and those powers were then bestowed on the board, which means Parliament had a very clear intention that the powers that had been bestowed on the trustee are being transferred to a board, and which therefore means the trustee cannot exercise those powers outside of the board except through the board. And the trustee was brought into the board as the chairperson of the board because of the intention that the powers of the board or of the trust would only be exercised through the board. So, Chair, what therefore then happens is that the Act says this board exists to administer the affairs of the trust and the trust land, which means, Chair, if this Parliament wants to look at whether or not the board is appropriately discharging its obligation, you can't look anywhere other than in the mandate of the trust. You've got to look at the mandate of the trust and then say, what is this organization supposed to do? Then to establish whether or not the board is discharging its obligations, you therefore have to look at the mandate of the trust and then say, what is this board doing in advancing that which is envisaged in legislation as the mandate of the trust? So that is all, Chair, that that's supposed to happen. That is what we have consistently at least presented to this committee. I do know that the board has advanced a fairly different view, but we've never shied away when we appeared before the committee when asked to clarify this question. But of course, Chair, the accounting authority is the board, and therefore the word of the board did become final on the matter, and as it's supposed to be. But Chair, that is the clarity I can provide on the question by Honorable Taff in terms of what is the relationship between the board and the trust. Then, Chair, with respect to, okay, Nkosum Zimela has already answered on the question of plans that he has in dealing with governance challenges. With respect to the indicators, Chair, that there were useful indicators, even if they were not being achieved, but the committee is not impressed with them being removed. The factual position, Chair, is that the indicators that have been removed are actually the indicators that were being achieved. Those related to the relationship agreements that were signed between the board and between the trust and certain stakeholders, including municipalities. That indicator, what you'll see in the past annual report was achieved. When we come before Parliament in the annual report that we'll present, you will also see that it was being achieved. The other relating to the capacitation of traditional leaders. You'll see that we achieved that indicator in the past financial year where we did present an annual report, I think 2020, 2021, 2022. And we will also prove when we come for the 2022, 2023 year that those indicators were being achieved. But the motivation of the board was in the indicator that relates to the production of human settlement plans, part of what happens there is capacitation. Therefore, there is no need to have a capacitation indicator separately. So, Chair, of course, we had different views, but of course, eventually the board's view prevailed and the indicator was removed. As the chair has indicated and the minister has indicated, the board will have a chance to reflect, and if need be, it may amend this APP or it can prepare for the next coming financial year to produce a APP that talks to the mandate of the trust. So, Chair, those were in the main, the questions from Honorable Honorable Tlhape. With respect to Honorable Masipa, the issue was what informs this 810 rights? What informed it? Where are these targets coming from? Chair, what we looked at was generally the numbers of applications that come through to this organization for tenure rights. Of course, these applications get approved or declined by the board through board meetings. So sometimes the non-achievement is not necessarily based on the fact that there has not been applications processed, but the non-achievement may be based on the fact that the board has said, declined them, or the board didn't see it in particular periods, and as a result, indicators have not been achieved. So the issue is not really whether we are realistic about the indicators we place. The issue is whether or not the applications get approved or the board converges to look at those applications. So therefore, in as far as we are concerned, at least on the administration side, we're quite certain those indicators can be achieved if there's focus on them being considered or on getting applications considered in time. I think on the issue relating to the 41 million, Chair, I wouldn't go into that. The chairperson has already responded in terms of what will the board do once it starts sitting. With respect to governance issues, Chair, the reason why we brought those indicators for the implementation of management action plans, both internal and external audits, was exactly for the purpose of addressing the governance challenges. So therefore, there is focus to that, Chair, but of course, there are constraints that will reflect in terms of the reports that the chairperson of the committee has asked for when we come back. Those also relates to human resource challenges. Chair, when we appeared the last time, we did reflect that the board had actually decided to downsize. So I suppose that when we come back on the report that the chair has asked for, we'll provide a little bit more information with respect to that. On the issue of the legitimacy of the chair, that has been responded to. Status of the ruling, Chair, we reported in the committee, I think it was in November, that Ingonyama Trust appealed the decision of the High Court. And as a consequence of that appeal, the organization therefore could not implement the judgment that had been issued by the Pietermaritzburg High Court. That appeal, Chair, there were two elements to the appeal. There was an appeal that sought to get the judges to recuse themselves and therefore invalidate the entire proceedings. That appeal failed up to the Constitutional Court. So the appeal on the merits of the case is still, as we speak, before the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. It has not yet been heard, but it has quite advanced towards being heard. So as a consequence of that still pending, the judgment, no part of the judgment has been implemented, and therefore the issue about the refund to the residential leases could not be addressed because of that reality, Chair. I think, Chair, on the issue of Ingonyama Holdings, it also falls in that list of issues that the chairperson has said they will need a report to the committee. I think those are now the questions from Honorable Matias. On the issue of the tenure policy that seems to marginalize women, I think it's one of those issues that the board will have to reflect and come back to the committee with some kind of response. The financial management challenges, Chair, we've responded to that. Honorable Mahla, on the issue of the turnaround strategy, that is what the board will address when it does have an opportunity to meet. What we can say, Chair, is that we had developed by September last year a business improvement strategy that we tried to sell to the board. We could not agree, but we will, of course, go back to the board once it starts convening and engage them on a proposed business improvement strategy. Then with respect to the questions from Honorable Chwete, I think that has been responded to on the issue of the core mandate, on the training, and yes, the same issues relating to the indicators that were removed. Then there's an issue of instability, which I think the board will be able to respond to. Chair, that brings me back to the chairperson's contribution, which I'd said I understood it to mean information that the chair would want to be brought back to the committee. And if I'm mistaken about that, I can then respond to the questions if the chair requires a direct response now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Advocate, thank you, Advocate Mgwengwe. Honorable members, those are the responses from the ITB. Any further input from the CFO of Vilakazi?
Thank you, Ndabezitha. I'm meticulously covered by the advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Vilakazi. Honorable members, there's the responses from the ITB. Are there any other further questions of clarity, any follow-up?
Chair.
If Honorable Chwete and Honorable Tate Masipa, I see your desire to follow up questions. You may proceed, Honorable Chwete.
Thank you so much, Chair. It's not a follow-up question, but Chair, I just want actually, I apologize if I missed this part. There was a question that I asked directed to the board and how to deal with the instability and policies that were not there, and I did not hear any response from that. Perhaps maybe you can allow them to answer, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chwete. Honorable Tate Masipa.
Chair, sorry, thanks very much. I thought just very important to make a statement, but it's not a question. Chair, the trustees of Ingonyama Trust expect us to hold the board to account on matters of concerns. So, and I heard you talking about questions that must not be asked, or questions that can be raised. But I just feel that questions as they are raised,
Just a point of correction. I never said to any honorable members that they cannot ask any questions. So please ask the question you wish to ask, Tate Masipa.
No, it's just a statement, Chair. I was just responding to your statement that you made with regards to the questions that were raised, that certain questions we not supposed to raise. I'm just saying that, Chair. I think
Again,
it's very
point
important.
of correction, Tate Masipa, please be clear in listening to what the input is. I was clarifying what Honorable Tate Matias was raising, that procedurally, even if there are issues out in the public or in the media, they've not come formally to the portfolio committee. We received, through the office of the minister, a letter from His Majesty, King Misizulu Kazwelithini, nominating His Royal Highness Nkosi Mzimela as the chairperson of Ingonyama Trust Board. That was formally communicated to the portfolio committee, and it is what we have in our possession. Any other things that are out in the media, we cannot, as a committee, be able to speak to. Hence, we have proceeded with today's meeting. Honorable Matias posed the question. The Honorable Minister answered Honorable Matias's question. So there is no question that was prevented from being answered, and there is no question that the Minister did not answer, which was asked by Honorable Matias. And being quiet, he's absolutely satisfied by the response of the Honorable Minister. So please pose your question or your comment that you wish to put to the committee this morning. Thank you.
Chair, I think you have clarified yourself again, but I just felt that it's important that obviously, the questions as they are posed, they must be left to obviously the accounting officers to account on those questions that were asked. That's what's actually what I wanted to state, Chair. But thanks very much.
Thank you for your statement, Honorable Tate Masipa. Honorable members, perhaps on my side, I can say that it is difficult, or what seems to be difficult to us as a portfolio committee is that there are no clear indicators to assist us as a portfolio committee to monitor the trust, especially the benefits to the communities or the material benefit and social well-being accruing to the communities. Also, honorable members, do bear in mind that there is a 90% and 10% split on expenditure, which is estimated from the monies that are collected. Administratively, the Ingonyama Trust will utilize 10% of what has been able to be levied from communities. 90% is being spent back into those communities. It is therefore difficult for us to see this. Perhaps, or maybe the board must be able to tell us how much time they need in terms of familiarizing themselves with the issues that are before the new board and be able to come back to the portfolio committee. Ours, honorable members, is the concern that is our term of parliament will soon be coming to an end. We need to deal with the ITB issues as a matter of urgency. So I would request honorable members, the chairperson of the ITB and the CEO, perhaps respond to the input that has been made, but we will request for all the questions that have been put to the ITB today to also be responded to in writing and be submitted before the portfolio committee no later than next week, Friday, being the 12th at 12 o'clock of next week. Let us hand over to the ITB for the last responses and comments, and we'll invite the Honorable Minister for closing remarks as we wrap up this session. Thank you, honorable members. Advocate Mgwengwe, the CFO, Bao Vilagazi, and the chairperson of the board. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as I had indicated in my introduction, with respect to the accountability of the trust and in terms of the indicators, the APP indicators not talking to the mandate of the trust, Chair, that's a function of a deliberate decision by the board to say it is only accountable for that which it receives from the fiscals, and therefore would not focus on what is the general mandate of the trust. It's not, Chair, that it can't be done, because with the revenue that is received by the trust, and with the history of expenses, because these are the monies due to communities, their needs generally get expressed by TCs in the form of requests for disbursements. So there's a history of how TCs have generally, of what TCs have generally used that money for. Chair, not that even that needs not be tampered with, but TCs, what you require is an analysis of that. You need capacity that engages with TCs, that advises them in terms of how these monies could be used to their benefit, so as to enable yourself that you can therefore plan before time, prior to a financial year, that this money will be deployed to do 1, 2, 3. So as a consequence of that not being planned, TCs continue to submit requests for disbursements every time, but because they are so ad hoc, they then don't get captured in a way. But I think in the main, these things have not found expression in the APP because the board had made a decision not to do so. So if a board makes a decision to do so this time around, something that can be done. It's just that it requires planning, it requires capacity that enables TCs to plan, because we generally have a sense of what this money gets used for. But there is a very big room for improvement in terms of what it can actually be used for, instead of what it is being used for. But that requires capacity engagement with TCs, which is why these indicators for capacity of TCs is important, not just for actual capacitation, but for relationship building between the board and TCs, because that indicator basically allowed an interaction between this organization and TCs, which will then allow this organization to influence how TCs to decide to make use of this money. Yes, it is their money. Yes, it is their decision, but they can be persuaded in terms of how it can be used in a way that benefits actual beneficiaries of this trust, which is the men and women, the ordinary men and women that stay in these places. So, Chair, that would be my response with respect to that. On the issue of labor relations disputes, Chair, yes, this organization did have labor relations disputes. There were employees that had been suspended for about 5 years, that we persuaded the board to bring them back in 2021. They did come back in December 2021, and but the board still wanted to make a decision whether to pursue those charges. And we had approached the board last year with a view to obtain an opinion whether those charges can actually be pursued, whether there was substance in the charges. So unfortunately, Chair, the board did not get to meet in December to make that decision. So those employees are not necessarily facing charges now because there's a pending decision to be made. So those really are the only labor relations matters that remained in this organization. One of the senior managers who had been made to sit at home also for something like 2 years, the board made a decision in June 2021 to bring her back, and she has been back and no charges were ever preferred against her. In fact, she was not even suspended even then. She was just asked to stay at home with the idea that the board will eventually decide whether there are charges against her. That decision was never made, and she came back, and she has been at work ever since. So as we stand now, those are the only labor relations disputes that exist. With respect to capacitation, the organization, Chair, does not have capacity to implement the programs it is supposed to implement in terms of the mandate of the trust. It does have a number of people that were employed for a specific purpose at a given point in time. So there is a need for capacity. Of course, there's an issue about resources, but there's another issue, Chair, that at another time we'll engage the board once it commences. The issue there, Chair, is whether the secretariat which supports the board is the secretariat of the board or is the secretariat of the trust. The administrative regulations, we believe, do define the issue that is the secretariat of the trust, not of the board, because the board is not a juristic person. But what happened is that the secretariat was placed in the board. And as a consequence of the secretariat being placed in the board and being considered to be a structure of the board, then the board looked up to the department to fund the organizational development of this entity. And therefore, with the limited funding that there was, the secretariat never was structured in a manner that will enable it to respond to the needs of this organization. So we had a debate about the board, with the board about that, because our view as a secretariat is that the secretariat does not belong to the board, but it belongs to the trust, and therefore the trust had to devise mechanism in terms of which it could fund capacity development in this organization. And we believe it can only if the matter was in the agenda. The issue is that the matter has never been in the agenda because the Secretariat was considered to be that of the board. But those are the issues that will engage the board once it starts sitting, because those are the real issues that will determine whether or not this organization has capacity moving forward. With respect to the issue regarding to Ingonyama Holdings Chair, Ingonyama Holdings has got only 2 directors. Those directors are Mr. S.J. Ngwenya and Mr. Lucas Mkwanas. Though Mr. Ngwenya is no longer a board member, at least as we sit now, he continues to be the director of Ingonyama Holdings. And therefore, and also Mr. Mkwanas continues to be. So it's the board that really has to, once starts meeting, look at Ingonyama Holdings, look at how it ensures accountability in terms of the identity to the board. Chair, there was a dispute in this organization whether or not Ingonyama Holdings is accountable to the board or it is accountable to the trustee. The directors of Ingonyama Holdings held a view that they are not accountable to the board, they are accountable to the trustee, as a consequence of which they characterized the relationship between themselves and the board as just a courteous relationship. Of course, that view was challenged by some members of the board, but the issue just never got resolved. As a consequence of which, Ingonyama Holdings never really accounted to the board, and we wouldn't know whether it did account to the trustee because there wasn't a mechanism in terms of which you could establish from the trustee whether Ingonyama Holdings does account to him. So it's an issue that the new board, when it comes in, it needs to sort it out. Chair, that is how far I can go in terms of the questions that you have asked. Thank you.
Any further input from the ITB before we hand over to the Honorable Minister for closing remarks?
I'm covered, Chair, from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister Mamuti Deza.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and members of the board. And thank you for this engagement today, which I do believe will empower the new board as it takes over the reins, acknowledging that there are residual issues that have remained that needs resolution, and that by next week, Friday, they must bring in writing the matters that has been raised by the committee, which therefore would mean the chairperson of the board must convene the soonest the meeting of the new board so that they can deliberate on these matters and give the necessary response to you as the chair and members of the board by next week, Friday. Thank you very much once again, Chairperson.
Chair, I'm sorry, there was just one issue on the labor relations matter that I accidentally forgot.
Please go ahead, Bamgangwa.
Chair, the board in August 2022, it took a decision to terminate contracts with employees who were not employed on a permanent basis. 10 of employees were affected by that. They subsequently took the matter to the CCMA, and eventually a decision was taken by a commissioner who presided over that matter on the basis of arguments that were presented by the board that the matter belonged to the labor court. So that matter, as far as we know, it has not yet been referred to the labor court by either Nehawi, which represented those employees, or by the employees themselves. We have written to Nehawi twice, just reminding them that there are timelines that that will impact on whether or not they are able to refer that matter if they don't refer it timeously. So that's the matter, Chair, which is a labor relations matter that is currently at play, but we don't necessarily know what's going to become of it since the CCMA issued that directive that it needed to be referred to the Labour Court. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Mgwengwe. That is the CEO of Ingonyama Trust. Honorable members, I would also then, from the input given, that to highlight the issues centered in and around Ingonyama Holdings, which will need serious attention from the ITB, but we will continue to play oversight on these issues. Honorable Minister Mahmoud Didiza, let us thank the leadership of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development for unveiling themselves for this meeting, but also do remind the department that the written responses to the questions that were posed by honorable members on the APPs that we requested in the APP and budget on the 18th of April, yet have not been received, and we had requested that they should be submitted by the 21st of April, that being Friday. We haven't received those responses, and we would like to request the minister to look into that and ensure that they are sent to us no later than this coming Friday. It's a matter of urgency, as we need to also compile our report so that we can be able to table it before the House. Honorable members, that is all on our side that we had on our agenda. I therefore want to thank all the honorable members for availing themselves for this APP of the ITB. We want to thank the ITB chairpersons and the new members of the board, Your Royal Highnesses. We wish you the best as you navigate your way and find your footing in the ITB. We want to thank the officials of the department who took time to join us and all the interested stakeholders that were part of this session, in particular our respected members of the media who were covering this session. Honorable members, the meeting stands adjourned. I wish you well on the rest of the day's proceedings and the week ahead. Happy Africa Month. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.